5 scores! Rick Bud.
We've decided to get ourselves back in the game again with our podcast.
Rick Bud, Gary Nattress.
Probably the craziest story that you're ever going to hear about hockey.
We're going to be coming back to you on a regular basis.
You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 64 of the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan. Joining me, as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, how are we keeping?
Pretty good, Mike. It was a nice morning today. Got out and played around at golf already, and nice smooth little 78. It wasn't real good. But nonetheless, it was a 78, so I can't complain about that.
Well, working on that game for when you get to Florida, so you're going to need your best game.
Yeah.
Well, our guest,
that's if we can ever drive across the border before.
Well,
probably not till after New Year's, in my estimate. But anyway,
hopefully. Well, hopefully that happens. And our guest today, in the meantime, we'll be dealing with this, was what we do, was taken 27th overall by Montreal in the 1980 draft, would enjoy 11-year career with stops in St. Louis, Calgary, Toronto, and Philly, part of one of the biggest trades in Maple Leaf history, which we're going to get into. Please welcome to the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show, Ric Nattress. Rick,
gentlemen, Ricky, Mike, how are you guys?
We're doing good. How you keeping busy today?
Excellent. You know, I said earlier, I was doing your show or staying and doing my mother-in-law's basement that's 100 years old. You have to bend over, and there's stuff down there. I'm glad I can't see very well because I couldn't see anything moving. So we did that today and trying to get her, her house ready to move. She's going to be 80 coming up here, and she's in good health, but it's too much, right? So
you're there, the good.
Well, the son-in-law for almost 45 years is coming to the rescue, right? So you got to do what you got to do, right? I still love my wife, and she loves her mother, so that means I've got to love her mother, right?
What, the happy wife, happy life?
Oh, well, she deserves it. Ricky can tell his wife as well because the first 20 years were a little rocky. You know what I mean? And I'm not on her part, not because of her. Let's put it that way. So,
well, let's get to that part of the story. Then we'll start right back at the beginning. So let's go back, and for the listeners who want to get into all this, but just talk about your early age, leading up to playing in EO with Brantford, in your minor hockey, and take us right to that level.
It's interesting because, you hear that, my son's got to play, or daughter, they got to play AAA at 7 years old, right? And I just think my personal opinion is they've got to go somewhere where they play. I don't care how many letters are behind it or in front of it. You got to play. So that was pretty much the story of my life. I grew up a single mom. I had a stepdad that was around for a little bit, but I never knew my birth father. And, we lived in the East End of Hamilton, and, very nice home. But, the area was Hamilton, right? So, and I'm a proud Hamiltonian. So anyways, took the bus to the rink a lot of times. My older sister, Sherry, had a lot to do with it because mom was working 2-3 jobs and, try to pay for hockey and pay for everything else. So my sister had to take me, and you could imagine, 14, 15-year-old girl that's got to lug her 9, 10-year-old brother around, how that emotionally she took that and did it on me. I'm not sure I took the bus most of the time. Then I ran away from her, with my equipment because she was pissed off. She couldn't hang out with her friends. But I was fortunate enough to have a big sister that cared and still does to this day, and God love her. So I'm playing hockey. I didn't play AAA till Major Bantam. A lot of people don't know that, why? Because you didn't have money, and it was, expensive for those times, not compared to today, but it was all relative. And I wasn't good enough. So before you had these participation medals, I think the medal that they used to have back then was most improved because I had a shitload of them. Okay? so every year, most improved. But, and this is what I tell kids, I was told many times that I was, a step too slow or, not this or not that. And, I never really thought about it. I just loved to play hockey. We played road hockey every day, like almost every day. I don't care what the weather was like. And so hockey was my life, watching the Leafs on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Saturdays, the whole game. Wednesdays, hopefully to the end of the second period if I was a good boy because, mom would make me go to bed when I was younger because it was a school night. But so I'm playing my minor midget year, had a really good year, got called up to the Hamilton Kilty Bees here and had a good playoffs for them. And then they were interested in, back then you got to remember, I just turned 16, right? Because the draft was 17 back then, 17 years old. So, they wanted me to come back, but they had an older team, and I didn't, my mom and I didn't feel that I was going to get the ice time that I needed at that age. I was starting to grow, you know what I mean? I was growing, I was lanky, I needed to be on the ice. So we pretty much almost had to threaten to go to court to play major midget. They wanted, and again, it came down to money, right? They wanted the $1,500. If I got drafted and I was part of their organization, they would get $1,500 from the team that drafted me. And it's pretty much the same day, the way it is today. So Dave Draper, which was the GM and coach off and on for the Fink Cups and also the Brantford Alexanders, I guess, stepped in and said, listen, we're going to draft this kid in the later round. So just let him play wherever he wants, and we'll pay you whatever the number was. I don't know. I'm not sure if they had to pay the full $1,500 because I was in the 7th round. So I had a really good year. We didn't have many players. I think we had 9 forwards and 5D, if maybe 8 forwards and 5D, if I'm not mistaken. So I played a lot. And, back then, Ricky, you were there. We were playing 100 games a year.
Yeah.
100 games a year,
Rick,
back in midget, 110. So, that was a
Rick,
really
I wish I had played on more. I wish I had played on more teams that only had 8 forwards. I would have got a lot more ice time.
That's, you know what I mean, Ricky? And this is what I talk about. It was a perfect storm, maybe not for the organization because it would have been nice to have a couple more bodies. But, a lot of the guys, you got to remember, we had the Kilty Bees here. The Mountain A's was the provincial A team at that time too. So there was a lot of hockey. This area in the Hamilton, Stoney Creek, Niagara area, as Ricky knows, is how many junior teams, from whatever letter you want to go up, there's a ton of hockey, right? So, so they said, you're going to get drafted. So I got drafted in the 7th round, 180 something or whatever it was. And, and then, going to camp. And unfortunately, you have some friends that you grew up with that didn't get drafted and, well, you're not going to make it and blah, blah, blah. So I go to camp. It was one of the worst teams in the previous year.
Yeah.
And Drake was coming in and said, okay, rookies are playing. So I think we had almost 13 rookies that my first year, 79, 80. So again, I got to play through mistakes and you name it. Like, the worst games, I know I'm in the lineup the next day and I'm going to play a lot and everything. So the playoffs come around and we had decimated with injuries on the back end. So Greg Terrion, you know what I mean? So we had Terrion went on to have a great career in the National Hockey League. He was the veteran, a third-year guy my first year. They brought him back to play defense with me because we had no defense, and we had 2 defense, myself and Mark Botel. And I ended up playing, like, no lie, 40, 42, 43 minutes a game, right? So we went on to the conference final. Unfortunately, we lost. And then, the rumor was, hey, Rick, maybe you should get an agent. And my mom were like, we don't know anybody like that. But I was fortunate enough through a program for, I guess, underprivileged kids to go to a hockey camp, Bobby or Mike Walton up in Aurelia. So Billy Waters was he was the guy that ran the camp for Bobby, right? So we knew Billy, and we knew Billy was in, the agency with Alan Eagleson at the time. So we saw Billy in the stands, and my mom approached him. Would you be interested in representing Rick? There's rumors that, he might get drafted, which is a surprise, because I never, playing road hockey and that, I wanted to be Davey Keon and Bobby Orr and, that kind, but I never on the ice, never really compared myself or wanted to be like anybody. I just played, and when they gave me more opportunities, I played more, and then, and it just progressed like that. It wasn't like I got to do this or I got to be in the NHL. And I didn't think that way. I don't know why, maybe because I was always a step behind, or you're not going to be good enough and all that kind of stuff. So when it came time to, the rumor is, okay, you might go 4th, 5th, 6th round, because they brought it back the year before in 79, Ricky, I think you were drafted. It was only 3 rounds, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, or 4 or 5.
Or something. It was very low. So in 80, they
Yeah.
went back to 10 or whatever it was. So, I was going to be a higher pick. So Billy said Mr. Waters said he would be honored, and then about 2 weeks later, this is going on in the playoffs, right? So it's not the end of the year. And by the time we got to the end of the year, Billy had left Alan Eagleson and became Ric Nattress Sports, because Ricky knows Billy and Ricky Kern very well. So I went with Billy and Ricky Kern because I knew Ricky was the camp counselor and his brother, Randy, was the counselors at Bobby or Mike Walton. So anyways, they said, well, we'll fly you down to Montreal. And I brought my brother's 19 years older than me. I have an older brother. So I thought, I don't have my father. My mom was working. She couldn't get off work because, what was she making? About $4 an hour was very important to her back then. And so we go to Montreal, and all I'm hearing about is the hot dogs, right? You got these hot dogs at the Forum and everything. So I'm like, it's going into the early in the second round, and I'm like thinking I might go in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. Look at that hair, Ricky. Look at that hair.
Oh, boy.
Hey. You can't see the earring that Montreal told me to take out. So at the end of the day, they looked at me weird with the haircut. So anyways, so we go to Montreal. It's early first round's just over. There was 19 teams in 1980. So, the 20th pick, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, I'm going to sneak off around the corner and grab a couple of these dogs, right? So I'm waiting for the good time because I'm sort of sitting around, I don't know Montreal's going to take me or whatever. I had interviewed with a couple teams. Scotty Bowman for 10 minutes. He didn't say a word to me. He just stared at me, which was the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. I almost pissed myself. An 18-year-old pissing himself wouldn't have been a good scene for him. But so I finally sneak up. They're about the 25th pick and stuff, and I sneak up and I find the hot dogs. I grab 2 of them. The first one I didn't even chew, right? It just went right down. And then I got the second one in my mouth and, mustard and everything on me. And all of a sudden the loudspeaker says, with the 27th pick, Montreal Canadiens take Ric Nattress. And I'm looking, right? Because everybody calls me Rick, except the government and my mother, right? So Ric Nattress, shit, that's me, right? And I got this hot dog. I'm looking to throw it in the garbage can because I got to go downstairs to, put the jersey on and all that stuff. So I run downstairs, and all I can think of, my mom's going to be pissed because she hates the Habs, right? Because she was a Leaf fan like forever. Like, originally from Toronto, listened to them on the radio. I mean, she loved the Leafs, right? So I'm thinking, I should be happy, but didn't they just win 4 Stanley Cups and they got the Iron Curtain on the back end there, Serge Savard, the point, Larry Robinson, England. I said, I'm going to die in Halifax, and I didn't even know where Halifax was back then. You know what I mean? I knew it was on the East Coast. So we do the picture and everything, and then they're looking at my hair, and they're looking, and they're making some suggestions, right? So I get drafted and everything, and then, was totally shocked. Montreal Canadiens, 27th pick. I just turned 18 about a week and a half, a week and a half before the draft. And so I finally get home because I want to get home. And I grew up in a very lot of French because it had the only public school and high school within 100 kilometers in the area in Hamilton that I grew up in. So a lot of Habs fans. So we had a lot of the Leafs against the Habs in road hockey. Vicious, right? Leafs won a lot. I'm just saying, okay? So at the end of the day, I was blocking shots back then, Ricky, so we were winning. Okay? So at the end of the day.
Well, you got big feet for it. So
yeah, well, they're not broken. They're a lot smaller than they used to be because they're all shattered now, Ricky. But so I get home, and I can't find, like, my girlfriend, which was Jackie, which is my wife of almost 40 years, and I don't know where they are. Of course, no cell phone. So, a bunch of people came out on the street, and my mom's on the porch, and she sees me. She starts crying, and my Aunt Georgia, which is a French big Habs fan, next door neighbor, I called her Aunt Georgia. Oh, your mom's so proud of you. Your mom's so proud of you. I said to her, Aunt Georgia, I think she's crying because she's pissed I went to the Habs, right? Of course. She jokes about it, but I'll tell you a story later on that I know she was happy when I finally became a Leaf. But that was getting drafted to the Habs, and I said this to many people, and I still say it even through some of the troubles I went through when I was in the organization, personal, my own troubles. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Best thing that ever happened to me. I got to work with Jean Perron, which was he was a great older defenseman. He taught me a lot. Larry Robinson, I sat beside him in the dressing room. I made them as a 20-year-old coming out of junior. I played with Claude Royale, was, a little guy with one eye that could pass the puck better than anybody I've ever seen in my life. And I'm saying Gretzky and Lemieux, but he'd do it about 200 miles an hour. Okay. So he worked with me every day. Jacques Laperriere was like my father. So I was with him every day working 4, 5, 6 hours on the ice in the gym. So it was the best thing and the hardest thing that ever happened to me.
Well, we do want to get into the situation that you had in Montreal. It started in 1982. We were going to wait. I want to get into your Montreal career first, but we might as well let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. I'll let you pick the story up.
A lot of people don't really know the story. They Google it. And I was a big drug trafficker or whatever I was. Well, I was playing junior my last year, and I got pulled over. I wasn't smoking in the car, but I was going to. So, this is the truth, right? So a guy sticks his head in my window and shows me a gold badge. He says, "How's your day going?" I said, "A lot better till I saw you," right? So he drives me to the police station. This is RCMP. I guess I had walked into some type of stakeout they were doing at this restaurant bar, and I was looking for my friends, and they saw me rolling the joint in the car. And they followed me because I was going to work my way back to Hamilton after. Anyways, so he took me to the shop and said, "You're going to have to appear in court." And I'm like, "But I had 1.8 grams of marijuana. It had a little hashish in it. Everybody hashish, well, big deal, right?" So anyway, so I'm like, I thought they're just going to get rid of it and, you know what I mean, scare me, and because it was barely 2 joints. Unfortunately, they were pissed because they never caught anybody. I guess they were staking this place out for about a week or so. I was their fish. So I hired a lawyer, tried to hide it from my mom and Billy Waters and the Montreal Canadiens, because I went into camp, my rookie camp, with this hanging over my head. And I just put my head down, worked my ass off, played as good as I could. Everything they did, I did more. Everything they asked, I did more. So I played this over my head, and this lawyer from Hamilton says, "Just give me $500 and we'll make it go away," because they were dropping charges like crazy back then. This is 1981, right? Everybody's got to remember that. So anyways, they're not going to drop the charge. So he asked me for another 500 and another 500. Now I'm up to $2,000 with him. And now he calls me and says, "I'm sitting in an apartment, Search Savard's buddies that Jackie and I rented. I get a call, February 2nd, you got to be in Brantford." I said, "Well, we're going to be in Boston. I can't leave." So I had to make that decision. And I first called my mother and told her what was going on, because I knew that was going to break her heart, which was the toughest thing. Then the second toughest thing I ever had to do was talk to Billy Waters, because they had a lot of faith in me and everything, and I felt I let everybody down. So Billy says, "We're going to get rid of this guy, and we're going to get another lawyer." So unfortunately, this guy wanted another $1,500. So it was $3,500, or he was going to take it public. So we gave him the $1,500. Billy had hired an ex-Crown attorney at Toronto, which was about $400 just to open the door an hour. So he got it postponed to the summer. Played through the season, had a great playoff. Unfortunately, the team didn't have a great playoff. We got beat out by Buffalo in 5. But I really had a good run, because, Ricky knows guilt, right? Played a lot with guilt, and sometimes you play some really good games and you feel guilty. So anyways, time for the court case to come. Certainly Montreal got involved at that point. And then so we were bringing character references and people to come up, and we went to court in Brantford, and the courtroom was jammed, reporters, everything. And it's like, wow, okay, what's going on here? This is a minor drug offense. So goes through, and I've got 30 people that are saying I'm a good kid, did a lot of community service stuff well before he got into trouble, and has done more after. And they didn't want to hear anything, right? If they could have hung me, they would have. The judge said to me, and this is word for word, "You're too young to take in consideration what you've done for your community, but old enough to know better. Guilty." So I got a $150 fine. Cost me $13,500 for lawyers.
Jesus. For 150.
So I go to camp for 2 joints, less than 2 joints. So I go to camp thinking, okay, sure, there's going to be some backlash and all that kind of stuff, but if I got to work every day for 22 hours, I'll do it. You know what I mean? I'll just shut my mouth and do the work, right? Unfortunately, we training camp, everything's good. I'm in great shape because, again, I know, there's no coming in with some ripples down the middle there. So as long as they're the 6-pack, everybody's happy, right? There's no 8-pack going to camp. So I get to camp. I'm in great shape, and And then I play 5 exhibition games and having a good preseason. And, and the response from, people like in Montreal was pretty good. You know what I mean? Thank God I couldn't read French because I couldn't read the paper. So I assumed everything was good. Didn't listen to radio. So even when I did, I couldn't understand it. So, so anyways, I get pulled over.
Rick, hold on.
Yeah.
Rick, how were your teammates towards you? Were they?
Well, they were older, a lot of older guys, and they're like, "You're getting fucked, and you're getting this, and and that was good. A couple of them, I don't want to mention any names, weren't great, but the majority, Larry, Guy, Bob Gainey, I mean, those guys are unbelievable, right? I mean, Pierre Mondu, Rick Green, you know what I mean? I can't say. That's why I said Montreal was, even after beating them for the Cup in '89, you want to get back at them. I got nothing to get back at them. You know what I mean? They were the best thing that ever happened. Anyways, so I get pulled aside, and Serge takes me up into the Reds in Montreal, the one corner, and he says to Ricky, the league came down and said, you're suspended for the rest of the year. I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, you're suspended. I said, can they do that? He says, well, Eagleson said do whatever. And then I'll tell you what Serge said to me 20 years later. But he said, that's the case. And if you're good, you can stay here and work out and skate and travel with the team, but you can't play. So, I'm 20, just barely 21 years old, and I think my life's going to be over, right? Because I smoked 2 joints. And, and this is what I want to make clear. I made a mistake. But if you look at anybody that's ever been charged for less than 2 grams of marijuana in the history of narcotics and cannabis being illegal, I should pop up to the right. I didn't pay Google, but I came to the top of the list anyways, right? So at the end of the day, I'm keeping my head down. I'm just trying to be positive and, take what I got to take, right? So I work. And Jacques Laperriere and I worked like 6. I'll tell you what my days were. So I go on the ice 45 minutes before the team with the goalie that didn't play the night before or hadn't played the game before. Yeah. We'd shoot 300-400 pucks, drag them from the right point, 6 feet into the blue line, short side, 6 inches up, no higher than 6 inches off the ice. And Ricky could tell even when I want to raise it now, I can't, right? So I did that. Then we practiced back then, and Ricky can attest to that. We did 3.5 hour practices with bag skates and, all that kind of rate. That's where your conditioning was. And I'd stay out with the Black Aces and get bagged again for another hour or so and do fundamentals when you're tired. So I'm on the ice 5 to 6 hours a day, and then I get to have lunch, and then I got to come back and ride the bike for 10 miles plus do a bunch of exercises in the gym. So that was pretty much was my day for a year. So which I, figured, hey, if this is paying my penance, then I'll do whatever I do, right? And come in with a smile because Montreal said, no, there's no moping, right? So you put yourself in this predicament. So make sure that you come with a good attitude. So I did my best with that. I had bad days. I was 21 years old, feeling sorry for myself sometimes, right? So anyways, the next year, so I come back, I get it commuted to 55 games, right? Yeah. So that in the exhibition. So, Eagleson didn't want to do anything, couldn't talk to anybody about this is not in the collective bargaining agreement. This is not anything that you can do. But there was Ziegler back then, right? So he was the king, as Ricky knows, you can't say anything negative, right? So anyways, Red Fisher, which is a, journalist for what? 100 years in Montreal. I'm sure it was 100. He wrote for 100 and drank for 120. But anyways, he really, he didn't like rookies, right? He wouldn't talk to the rookies ever. But he talked to me. He wrote an article that went over the wire, went North American, and made its way to Europe about how I was getting fucked by the NHL. Ruin a kid's career to make an example. It wasn't like they were coming after me, but I fell in that, I won that lotto. I've won a couple lottos that I wish I didn't enter into in my life, but unfortunately I won those ones, right? So, and how they were screwing me, and I just come off a good year, and look at what he did with that pressure and everything. Anyways, it was really good. And, but, other than, it was positive, there was nothing that came of it because what could come of it. So after that, during the course of the year, I went over to the border in Vermont because Montreal's close there, and I had to get photographed, mugshots, and fingerprinted 4 times that year so I could enter into the States. And I had a a visa that was, that was restricted, but I could do it with the team, but no other time, right? So I did that for the next 3 years. I had to go 4 times a year and get mug shots and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, when I went to Calgary, Cliff Fletcher was able to get me a different type of waiver that I still have to this day. So the next year, 85, 84, 85, Serge comes up to me and says, Ricky, you could be 6th, 7th, 8th defenseman here, or you go down, we move the team from Halifax to Sherbrooke, and you'll play half an hour. Yeah. And I'm like, after 2 years of not playing, I played 79 games, I think, in 2 years or whatever, because of the suspension and just the way that Montreal did things. Right, that's how they did things. If Larry Robinson could play in the minors for a couple of years and sit on the bench for 1 year in Montreal, I think I could, I could probably done 3 times as much as him. So went down to Sherbrooke, had a great year, almost 50 points, another 19 in the playoffs. We won the Calder Cup with Patrick Roy, Stefan Richer had a great year. And Serge came to me again and said, Ricky, Ron Caron had left Montreal. He was player development guy. And he had drafted me, Wickenheiser, Rick Wamsley, Mark Hunter, Greg Pozlowski, you name it. So he was building a team in St. Louis that was, was threatened to be moved to Saskatoon. If everybody remembers that, in 1985, they were threatened to move the team from St. Louis. So he said, what do you want to do? You can, again, be 5th, 6th, 7th guy here. Chris Chelios, Tom Curvers, Peter Sabota, all these guys had been coming in. Different style player than I was. So, I looked at the depth and said, I'm going to have a better opportunity to play. And that's when I made the decision. I thank Serge and I thank the Montreal Canadiens because Mr. Corey, Serge, oh God, you name it. They were really good to me. I mean, they pushed me and tested me every day. But at the end of the day, it was something that, for the most part I deserved. And for the other part I needed.
Well, I was going to ask you, Rick, now that story, 2 things, I guess. Number one, let's get this one out of the way first. Yeah. Do you think that the suspension held you back somewhat, or did that?
Oh, of course. And then and I'm not saying I'm perfect because, then you get anxiety and I was this, and I looked at other ways, not marijuana because I didn't want to get caught with that, but alcohol, I started drinking more and, just, you know what I mean? It wasn't a good situation and I played well, but I was never felt comfortable. And I always guys mouth, saying shit. And, like now I was a cokehead and I was, taking heroin and I'm like, but it was weed. Okay.
Yeah.
Even back then, it was just weed and it wasn't very good weed, not compared to today's weed. So
where I'm going with that is, here's a team that had a few years invested in you. You go to Sherbrooke, you light it up. Yeah. You're the leader on the team. They win the Calder Cup and they don't even give you a shot to play, but they use kind of the excuse.
Yeah. But I think it was good for both of us. You know what I mean? Like Montreal didn't have to, worry about that anymore. I could go to the States and play. And how many people in Missouri thought we were just from up north, and I knew Jim from Alberta, what I mean? And I lived in Ontario, you know what I mean?
Let me stop you there and ask you this then. You leave an iconic franchise for a well-regarded expansion team that has been around for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. They had some strong leadership, Brian Sutter, Bernie Federico, Gilmore, Hunter, guys you're very
familiar with. Was there, yeah.
Anything seemed different between the 2 organizations because Montreal stood out alone, as everybody said. Anybody we've ever had on the show always tells us that. St. Louis had some great talent in those days and always tried to cut corners financially, as we hear from everybody. Yeah. They could almost never get out of their own way. I mean, this apparently was a real frustration for the players. Did you sense this right away?
Oh, 100%, because, and this is what I know, and I'm assuming it's fact, but again, who knows? But, the league didn't want the team to move, so a gentleman called Harry Arness,
we know him. Yep.
Yeah, and Harry was AAA baseball, right? Minor league baseball. That's where he made his money. He made a shitload of it, right? Plus, he was in entertainment and shows and that later on. But so he bought the team, and my understanding is he bought it for $3.3 million at the time, $300 cash and a promissory note for $3 million. So we, get there, and it's a bunch of guys, and I compare it to the Vegas team. When it first came in, a lot of guys that played on the Montreal Canadiens, but were the 6th, 7th, 8th defenseman, or the 10th, 11th, 13th, 12th, 13th forward that, could play at a higher level. I'm not saying number 1 guys, but, could play at a better position for more minutes. So we had those guys, a little bit of a chip, not big salary guys, looking for contracts or just signed undervalued ones. You know what I mean? So we had that side of atmosphere, I think it's, funny thing how certain things, hardships or disadvantages pull you together, certainly as an organization or a team within the team, because as Ricky knows, sometimes you're playing, you better play for yourselves, because at the end of the day, you don't know what's going on around you and what they're going to do, because you've seen some shit that you're shaking your head. So like, you know what I mean? So we get to St. Louis and it was, what's
Rick,
that?
Rick, I went through 7 years of that here.
I know. That's why I brought it up, Ricky. I know, bud. We played you guys about 20 times a year, so I know what was going on in Toronto, bud. So I get to St. Louis, and Dougie was there, and he's just coming. He was a checker at that time with offensive skill that no one gave him credit for, but they loved how he was a checker. Brian Sutter was a great leader. Bernie Federico was very underrated. I think my personal opinion, he's the guy that invented behind the net, not Gretzky, because Bernie Federico did that for years before him, and continued to do it over 1,000 assists. So I'm not comparing them, but Bernie did a lot of work behind the net, and Gretzky got a lot of credit for the work he did behind the net. But Bernie, I felt, was one of the early guys that utilized that spot. So we get there, and then we find out, I need a new pair of skates. Wow, those are good enough. What do you mean they're good enough? They're broken down. The rivets are rusted. Can I get some sticks? Well, geez, that one right there. Glue the fiberglass back on. And I'm thinking, am I playing for a shitty junior B team? And, who knows where? And they got no money. So, the little tape that, the end of the roll that, when you're a kid, you used every inch of it. But when you're in St. Louis, we were like, you throw it away and, at the pro or junior level, Ricky, because there were stacks of it, it was only a quarter inch or a half an inch. We were taking that shit home because you couldn't go to a sports store. There was no sports stores in Missouri that sold hockey equipment, so you couldn't get tape. So we were like little kids putting it in our cars and bringing it in and not sharing it with anybody because we only had a little left. And Ricky knows what I'm talking about. When you're a kid, I can't. My dad will kill me. This is supposed to last all week. Oh, yeah. Okay? So we were like that. Dougie Gilmore, we go to Montreal. He can't get skates, right? So he goes to Montreal, buys them himself because the guy drives him up from Kitchener, takes them out of the box. They get just do one quick sharp, and he wears them that night in a game. But I think he got 2 goals and 2 assists and, to shut whoever the goal scorer was on the team down that time. So we couldn't get anything. It was funny. It became one of those things, a rallying point that we just joked about and everything. But what we did have is lots of beer from Anheuser-Busch. So we're weighing the options. Fuck the tape. I like the beer. So at the end of the day, we'll get Velcro straps like the old ones when we were kids. They were with the hooks on them anyway. So it was just, it was funny. And then team parties, we had to order. Pizza parties, you know what I mean? We're having pizza parties for, the end of the year. We one goal away from, going to the Stanley Cup final, or 2 goals because we needed to tie and go up. We're having a pizza party at the end of the year. Okay. So we have a great season, like for a team 500, just, and Ricky can attest to this, clutch and grab as the best right back then, baby. So, cross-checking and hanging on to your sweater. That's what I was good at. So at the end of the day.
Yeah, I felt those paws on me a few times. Yeah. Come back here. Come back
that big coho too, Ricky. You got a few tattoos on your back because of that coho. I'll tell you right there. You couldn't break my sticks, but it was a tree outside. You took the leaves off and taped the end up, and I was good to go, right?
Well, that was the same as mine. Your arms probably got a few of my scars on there.
Oh, man, I know. Like even today, I'm like, Ricky, how do you use those things? I get pop my elbow out if I ever use my stick. So we go through the playoffs. We beat Minnesota, which is a funny story because I forgot we even played them 20 years later, and I'm watching the classic NHL classics. And I'm looking 85, 86, Minnesota against St. Louis, game 5. Like, shit, I played on that team. So I don't remember. So we go to Toronto and we beat them in 7 that year too.
Hey, by the way, are you sure it was only one joint, Rick?
Yeah. Well, no, that was in the States. You couldn't find good stuff. But at the end of the day, we played Toronto in the second round because you used to play out of 5, right?
Yeah.
Or out of 3 out of 5 in the first round, the quarterfinal. And then we played Toronto, and we won in 7 games.
7 games,
and we went to Calgary and lost in 7 games. So it's a funny situation. Game 6, People can look at it. One of the best comebacks in playoff hockey. We were down 3 goals with a couple minutes to go, probably 3 or 4 minutes. We ended up tying it and winning in the game. They call it Miracle Monday. So game 6, we ended up winning it. We charter a plane, or the team does, to go to Calgary. It's like 110 degrees in St. Louis. Like, I'm not joking. It's May 10th or 11th or something like that. Guys, I lost 17 pounds that game. I'm not joking. It was so friggin' hot. You couldn't even have a beer after the game. It was so hot, Rick. You're that dehydrated. So you know how hot it is.
That's hot.
I was there in May when we played you guys in the round before that, and
that's what I'm saying. It was
degrees.
like the ice was like slush. So it was a grind.
So
Miami
horrible.
Vice is in that back then. You know, the cotton suits and the skinny tie and no socks with the loafers and everything. And we're like, shit, you know, it's May 12th. So Calgary's got to be like 80 degrees or whatever, right? Because when you go on the Weather Channel, there's no Weather Channel. So we're all dressed like this, no overcoats, no socks. We fly in on a charter on the 12th. We open the door. There's 12 inches of snow. It had one of those Calgary, Alberta, flash storms that come in. So we're getting off the plane with no socks on, with white loafers and oh my God. So we finally get there. The next day it was like 70 degrees out and it was a flood because of all the snow melting, but that was Calgary. So we lose 2-1, unfortunately. Dougie hits the post with under 10 seconds, the deflection. We lose 2-1. So we're flying back, and we've got a charter, because if we win, we're going to fly directly to Montreal for the Stanley Cup final. So we lose. They cancel the charter to save money.
Oh, no.
We have to find our own way home. I'm 23 years old, and I've got the 6th most seniority on the team, Ricky. I got like 150-something games, and I got the 6th most seniority on the team. So I get home the first day. It took some of our guys 2 days to get home back to St. Louis. So that's what I say. And so we have an end-of-the-year party. You would think, losing the Camel Conference Final, Game 7, at least we can get some chicken on a stick or something. We had pizza. That's what we had. We had a shitload of Budweiser, though, but we had pizza.
Well, that's the key. That's the key right there.
Well, they knew exactly how to keep us happy, right? Just give them beer and throw chips at them later. They'll be fine, right? So, guys, that year, Mark Hunter scored 45 goals, and I don't know and I don't want to say this, but he was, there was 10 or 12 games to go, or 8 or 10 games to go to try to get 50. Unfortunately, he didn't get his 50, but he got a bonus, and his bonus check bounced. Rick Swamsley, one of his paychecks bounced. We didn't get reimbursed till the following November. Once the gate receipts came in, then they reimbursed us for our tickets.
I guess
that was the environment with,
He was using the same accountant as the WHA guys.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So Harry, ended up, I played that year. Ricky, you're part of the family. I've got a contract coming up. I figured, I'm third guy around the third defenseman. Rob Ramage was there. I'm third, fourth guy, playing a shitload, scored 30 points, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have a good year, right? So we play the next year. We lose to the Leafs in 6 games in the semifinals.
Yeah.
And then I'm negotiating a contract, but first they're saying, Ricky, buy a house. You're part of the St. Louis Blues, right? So Jackie and I buy our first home. We're 23, just before we're 24 years old. We're negotiating my contract, and they want to pay me $125, and I want $135. They trade me 4 Saturdays to the day we moved in our house to Calgary because I over $10,000. Just had our second child, Christy. She's 2 months old. Brand new house, trade me because of $10,000. So it's a funny story, really, because my buddy had come down to see the house, and we just had our second child, and they just had their first. The daughter was in between our son Justin. There's 3 years difference between him and his sister. So, anyways, they come and visit. So I'm going to take my buddy to a Cardinals game because they had a pretty good team back then, right? Baseball. And so we stayed up late drinking and stuff like that. So I got an ensuite in my house that I didn't know what an ensuite was, right? So now I got a shitter right beside my bed. This is perfect, right? So perfect world. It's a Saturday morning. I'm reading the comics in my new ensuite, having a dump, and the phone rings and I can hear it. And my wife yells, "Rick, the phone." I said, "Well, tell him to call him back. I'm in the bathroom." And then she yells again a couple seconds later, "Rick, the phone." I said, "Tell him I'm having a shit. I'll call him back in a couple minutes," right? My buddy comes, knocks on the door. "Rick, it's your boss." And I'm like, "Oh, it's draft day today," right? So I just give it one quick. I didn't even pull my pants up, but I just walked to the phone. "Hi, Ron. Hi, Rick. Well, we made a great deal. You're going to go to Calgary for a third and fourth pick or fourth and fifth or whatever, and money. They got $150,000 too for me. The cheap pricks wouldn't even pay me $135, but they got $150, and it's going to be great." And Jackie and I had painted and hung walls and everything this 4 months, and that's why I never paint again, right? Because I did that our first home, and we got fucking traded 4 Saturdays to the day with it, right? And then the market crashes in 1987, so this was a great experience of buying your first home. So I say to Jackie, she says to me, "What's going on?" I said, "Pack your bags, we're going back to Canada." And I just finished 2 years of trying to liquidate myself out of Canada, so my tax situation, like, that crushed me too. So it wasn't a very good. So, that attitude was, they had traded for Joey Mullen. I was the next guy. The end of Calgary ended up trading for Mark Hunter, ended up trading for Rob Ramage, ended up trading for Rick Walmsley, for Brett Hall, those two guys in 88. What do you call it? No trade, the trade date, whatever, trade day. And Dougie came in that summer. So we ended up having 6-7 guys from that St. Louis Blues team that went on to win the Stanley Cup in 89. But my experience in St. Louis, I'll tell you right now, guys, all that went on, we had a great bunch of guys. Ricky, and that's what I was talking. It was us against the world, because we can't even get friggin' tape, right? We're fucking pizza parties, okay? We're having pizza parties at the NHL level, right? My kids' hockey parties, they had better food. Anyways.
Better food, yeah.
Yeah, so anyways.
Well, I can tell you right now, those teams you guys had during those years were very, very tough.
We worked hard, right, Brian Sutter, right? We worked hard.
Worked extremely hard. And I had to play against Brian Sutter. You talk about a tough game.
Oh, yeah.
And we never had a fight, but all the games that I had to play, I had to play against Brian Sutter. And I got to tell you, at the end of those games, I was done. Like, I was beat. Yeah.
Oh, well, we knew, Ricky, there wasn't many, and I don't, no disrespect to anybody, but you were the biggest threat at that time. And so what do you do to that? You try to eliminate it, right? Any way you can within the rules, and maybe a little on the other side of the ruurs. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? It's about winning, Ricky. I'll apologize later when you're getting your niece, all surgically repaired. So one last thing about the St. Louis stuff. So, St. Louis was one of those, it's one of those, that's why I say the Vegas thing, you know what I mean? Like, you get the Vegas thing, and we, and Ricky knows this, you want to prove yourself. And sometimes you get complacent, or sometimes it gets stale or something, not many guys can stay at a high level in one place consistently. You look at Hyman in Toronto, right? One of the biggest thing that he said, he wasn't given a discount, we know that. But what also was a new environment. Maybe you get a little stagnant, you get put into that role that maybe you haven't been able to expand because it's been successful for you here, but you can expand that somewhere else. And I think, we were those guys in St. Louis, and it was, one of those times that was, one of the best things that, again, another opportunity that wasn't the best, but we worked it out to make it better than anything, you know what I mean? So
walk us through the Stanley Cup here in Calgary.
Yeah. Well, and there's the thing, like, and this is what I talk about when I do these corporate things, because everybody wants to be the goal scorer, right? But there's only so many goal scorers, and good ones that are consistent. Ricky was one of them, right? But what can you do to be successful? My job was to move the puck and put it on guys like Ricky's stick, not in their feet, not up their ass, on their stick, right? And when he made a mistake with it, I'd go get it back and give it to him again. You know what I mean? About the 5th or 6th time when he fucked up with it, I said, "That's it. You're fucking cut off now. Get it in deep. I want to get off."
Well, actually, Rick, before you get too much into it, let's just do a little comparative here. Now you've gone from Montreal to St. Louis. Now the leadership you've already touched on in Montreal.
Both are hugely strong. Yeah,
with Lafleur and so on, and then you talked about we talked about St. Louis. Now you go to Calgary. You're looking at guys like Pablinski, McDonald, Hunter. There's Gilmore again, Brad McCrimmon.
Well, eventually, like they're building that, right? That was 3 years, right?
As they're all coming in, and you're looking at that, did you start thinking yourself, boy, like here's this?
I knew that when I was on the shitter and answered the phone. They're gonna win a Stanley Cup. We just played them, a year earlier, and gave them everything we got, and we believed that we slowed them down. That Montreal that year didn't really. I'm saying it's tough to win no matter what, but I think they underestimated us, right? And I think that's one of the reasons Cliff brought us in, because maybe less talented, but bigger drive, right? You know what I mean? Than some guys that they had in the lineup. But I just want to talk about one last thing in the St. Louis era. So during those playoffs, and this is the 86 season, Jacques Demers is our coach, right? And what's his name was off the record, not off the record, but Sportsnet. Now Doug McLean is our assistant coach, big glasses and everything, right? So we're going into the rink near the end of the year. He didn't come on the ice. Barclay Plager, unfortunately, God rest him, what a great man. I had him for 2 years. Unfortunately, he was sick with brain tumors, and the last year of that 86-87 season was not good. He passed away 87-88 season. Actually, All-Star weekend of 88. So Jock is not coming on the ice because he feels if he goes on the ice, then Bark's going to go on the ice. So literally we had no coach from January 19th, right? Brian Sutter was running practices. We were pushing Rob Ramage, guys like that. We were pushing, doing lines, doing everything. So we go on this run at the end of the year to, even make the playoffs, and then the run in the playoffs there. And we walking into the rink at the Checkerdome, the old Checkerdome, and we'd see Jock like at the other end of the rink on a payphone. And we're like, he's got a phone in his office. Like even back then they had phones in their office. And we're like, whatever, we're in Detroit. It's on a payphone at the opposite end of the dressing room. We're in Minnesota. Like, what's going on with this? Even on the road, you get a phone. That's all you got.
It sounds like Slapshot.
Well, we find out after the season, we have that great run. Smartest coach in hockey, takes a lot of has-been players to almost a goal to the Stanley Cup. All this, and then that comes out that he had verbally agreed to a new contract with St. Louis. When he signed he was talking to Detroit the whole time, negotiating his contract, 4-year deal, $1 million, $250 a year. At that time was my highest paid coach in the NHL, right? And he's negotiating with Detroit while we're playing in the playoffs. He can deny it all he wants, but we know that's exactly what happened. So it's funny because 4 years after. He signed a 4-year deal in Detroit, and I had to bring this up. He signs a 4-year deal, 2.5 years in or whatever it was, he gets fired, and he goes on TV and he says, I can't believe where the loyalty's gone in the game. I was fucking putting my foot through the TV. Jackie yelled at me, don't you kick that TV. I was going to boot him right in the head. So that's – a lot of people don't realize that run was pretty much the team. You know what I mean? And Bark would come in and talk, and Jock would, we've made up since then. And, he knows how I feel about some of the things that he did to the younger, and I say younger guys, I was 23, 24, but Ricky knows top 5 guys, they would blow them. Middle 15 guys, middle 12 guys don't even know. We're like the middle incomers and, do the work, pay the taxes, but don't get any credit, right? And then they've got the 5% at the bottom, the 4 to 5 guys that they shit on to see if they can get them to quit. And shit on. So we had our run-ins with that because Ricky knows I'm a team guy, right? And if you're abusing somebody, I don't give a shit who you are, right? You know what I mean? At the end of the day. So we had some words, but we sort of made up since then. But a lot of people don't realize how that season went and what Brian Sutter and Bernie Federico and Rob Ramage and those guys meant to us guys because of the lack of leadership maybe at the highest point, but it wasn't – we didn't struggle with leadership out on the team level.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, but, that – I think that right there says what it's like the hockey players and what they're made of. I think when you're going through all that adversity up top, and I've been through it myself.
Yeah.
But you find a way to get through it and together, and that's the thing. I think when you're talking about that, it was a team that got together and just said, we're not going to let this get out of hand. Let's just go out and do the
work,
jobs,
Ricky. You know what I mean? What we could have,
Yeah.
And the conditions, listen, I love St. Louis, and this is what people don't know. How could you love that scenario? Because it was the guys, we were close, we had parties together. Everybody showed up. The wives got along, So, Mike, going back to your thing, getting traded to Calgary, I understood that I'm going to have to fight every day to be in the lineup again because of the talent level, but I also knew that these guys are going to, probably going to have the best opportunity for me personally to ever win a Stanley Cup. So what do I have to do to be part of the team? And what do I have to do to be not only part of the team as 25 guys, but be part of the team where they want me on the ice? So, that was a challenge because, Cliff was great. But one of the things I say about Cliff Fletcher, and everybody's got their own experience with guys. Cliff was honest with me. So we'll go right to the Stanley Cup season because I played my first year quite a bit, and then I started having knee problems, Mike. So I was missing, the first time was 8 days. The next time was 21 days. The next time was 42 days. The next time was 60 days. I think I had 5 surgeries in Calgary. And so, when we're winning, we won a lot of hockey games. I think out of the 4.5 years I was there, we won 3 President's Trophies. If I'm not, we came in second 2 or 3 times. So, out of that 4.5 times, I just added up 6. So there you go, stay in school. But at the end of the day, we had a very good team, top power play, penalty killing. So I wasn't going to be on the peak on the power play. Like I got on some second line minutes in St. Louis, that's why I got up to 28 points because I got some opportunity to play on the power play. And Ricky can attest to that. So I'm in Calgary, and what am I going to do? So I'm going to be a shutdown guy. And I'm going to be a penalty killer because that's how I can get the most minutes, from Al McGinnis, Gary Suter, Brad McCrimmon, Rob Ramage. The list was on, you know what I mean? So how do I fight to stay in the lineup? So, through injury and then success, sometimes you come back what you think when you're ready, but they don't think you're ready and they're winning, So I'm not the goal scorer and I'm not the slap shot from the power play. So I'm going to have to wait my time a little longer than most people. And I guess that's who I was. I was that guy that we're going to give this guy a shot. But when we go into Philly or Boston and the playoffs come, Ricky, you're going to play a lot. But we want to see this kid, what he can do. So you're going to take a night off.
Now,
what do you say?
How was the city through the celebration? And
unbelievable. It was unbelievable. So, the thing is, huge support from the fans, like the Sea of Red, Electric Ave, all that kind of stuff. So I just want to tell the one story about Cliff though. So it's coming close to the end of the year, about 30 games left. And I haven't, I missed 28 because of my knee. And now I missed another 6 because of we're winning. I think we only lost like 3 or 4 games out of that 40, almost 40 games that I missed. So it's hard to, and I get that, but you still get frustrated. So I'm with the guys, and I'm working my ass off because I know this year's the year. So I'm in the gym every day, riding the bike, getting back, doing extra work because I want to be ready when it's time to get going here. So finally, the guys are, we had a great bunch of guys too. You need to have a great bunch of guys that were more interested in winning than getting that goal or, doing this or doing that. We really had that. So we competed, like Dana Mers and myself and a couple other guys, and we were buddies. But we competed every day, because we wanted to be in the lineup. And if we weren't, we made sure that we told them, whoever that was, that we're supporting them and, good luck. So, and our wives got together. Ownership took care of the women, they knew because we traveled a lot. So they would bring them together once or twice a month and get babysitters for them to have a spa day or take them out for lunch just to make sure. Cliff Fletcher felt if you're happy at home, you're happy at the rink. So anyway, their boys are bugging me. Nat, you got to go talk to them. You're working your ass off. You deserve to play. They're getting me going. So I'm like, fucking right. I'm going. The Cliff and me, I'm going to tell him exactly how I feel. So after the game, because I was out, I said, Cliff, can we talk in the morning? He says, yeah, be at my place at 8 o'clock, right? At his office. So I go out with the boys. We have a bite to eat, having a few beers. And I'm going to tell him this and I'm going to tell him that. I don't know what he's going to say, but I don't give a shit anymore, right? So I wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, shit. why did I tell Cliff that I wanted to have a meeting? Now my balls are about this big, right? They're not big anymore, right? The beer's worn off. So I get down in the rink, and he's about 15 minutes late. So I'm like sweating, sitting in his office, and I'm waiting for him. I'm like, why did you do this? What do you, what? So he says, hey, Nat, he comes in. Sorry, I'm late. And he says, I know why you're here, but can I say one thing first, a couple things first? I said, Cliff, you're the president and GM. You can say whatever you want. But he says, Ricky, Nat, he says, we know you're working hard and you're ready to go and you've been nothing but great. He says, I can't promise you're going to be in the lineup tomorrow, but you're going to get your shot. And we think you're ready. And, I think you're ready. And he says, can I say one more thing to you? And I said, sure. He says, I've always followed by this rule. And I said, what rule's that, Cliff? He says, if you got the balls to ask the question, you better have the balls for the answer. So I sit there and I think about it. He says, now what do you want to say? I said, nothing. Everything's good, Cliff. See you later. So I love that one. If you got the balls to ask the question, you better have the balls for the answer. And I'm like, maybe I don't want to know what he's going to tell me. So a week later, I'm in the lineup, never came out, played all the way through. Game 6 in Montreal, played 18 minutes, and, we won the cup. So it was, and then again, the lesson to corporate or kids, you never know the situation, but just keep working because you never know when the door's going to open. And if you're not ready, that door might never open again, Ricky. You know what I mean? So make sure you're ready. So that was, and winning the cup in Calgary was like awesome, but it was like compared to today, we don't get a million fans like Chicago does, but we had about 300,000 people for a city of, at that time, what was it, 500,000, 600,000? Yeah. Half the city showed up in surrounding areas. But I think the biggest thing there, and a lot of people don't realize it, is Harley Hotchkiss, our ownership. Harley Hotchkiss, the Seaman brothers, Margaret, you've got Norm Green came in later, Normie Wong. They were like a family. They treated Mr. and Mrs. Hotchkiss, Harley and Becky, are two of the nicest people. Unfortunately, Harley's not with us anymore. He's been gone for quite some time. But they would bring you into their house and call you, we were their boys. And they had a big family. Self-made millionaire in oil. He owns a big tree factory. I mean, this guy was the expansion guy for the NHL. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame as a builder, but these people were beautiful, and all our ownership was like, they cared about us, as I said, about the family, about the women, because they knew we were doing 8-day, 10-day, I don't know how many road trips we were on back then, because you know what I mean? They were making sure the girls were all right, the wives, the girlfriends, the fiancés, whatever, the kids, any problems, they could call the rink and it would be taken care of like that. So they really believed in family, and they brought it from the ownership right down. And I think it was effective in so many ways on how we looked at how we wanted to have success as a group, how we wanted everybody to have success, but we understood only so many people could be on the ice or on the bench at that one time. And I think it was probably one of the best teams I've ever seen deal with that kind of stuff. But the end result was, after the Stanley Cup, it sort of blew up a little bit in regards to getting rid of guys, but to sacrificing for the greater good, right? So, and I know it sounds a little corny, but at the end of the day, I lived it and I saw it, and we still see it, because when you win, you truly win. And Cliff said this, and it wasn't his quote, but it's from anybody. You couldn't see guys from 25 years ago, and you're a champion. You're bonded for life, bud. You're bonded for life. And, I don't care if you didn't hang out with the guy when you see him. Like, I was just in Alberta and saw another 12 of those guys. It was like yesterday.
Well, I was just going to say, so as it started to unravel, and your buddy again, who you've been with on 2 teams now, Mr. Gilmore, is the center of it. You know where I'm going with this, the big trade. How did it all unfold? Well, how did you find out about it and all that stuff?
Well, Cliff had left, right? I think 91 he was gone, right? Became the president GM of Toronto. Reiser, Doug Risebrow, longtime Montreal Canadian, longtime Calgary Flame, was assistant coach. He worked his way up the ladder. And Reiser had played with some of us, played against a lot of us. He wanted to put his stamp on the team. Plus the 5 guys that left, we were all looking for contracts, right? Instead of signing me to another contract, he signed me to a double eagle, which meant they doubled my salary and I became a free agent that following summer. And Dougie was looking for you. They could have signed Dougie for 5 years at $3 million. Eh? No, I think at the time, he wanted 800,000 or whatever. Yeah, he got $3 million from Toronto. I think he wanted 5 years at 800,000 or something, and Reiser didn't want to give it to him. McCown was up in another year. Walmsley was up. Kent Manderville was still a prospect, right? He was just coming out of college. So again, I was out I had a broken foot and a crushed instep on my left foot. Don Cherry did a big piece on my skates. I don't know if you remember that, Mike, but I was making those custom shot blockers before. Another thing, Ricky, I should have patented, but I didn't, right? I went to have a beer instead. That's good enough. So anyway, this is around Christmas time and all that kind of stuff. And we knew there was a freeze finally back then, in the 91, 92, right? Finally, you couldn't get traded over the Christmas holidays. Thank God. So Dougie comes up to me and we're close, right? We played in Calgary and St. Louis together, St. Louis. And he says, Nat, I'm not going in tomorrow. So this is New Year's Day. Yeah. Get ready. I said, get ready for what? He said, we're going to Toronto. I said, fuck you. He says, we're already on. You don't even know it, right? So sure enough, I get a call. We get New Year's Day off. I get a call. I was supposed to go into the rink on the 2nd, get the call in the morning. We've been traded, the big trade, right? So got traded to Toronto. I was excited. I know my mother was excited because now I got to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Dougie was excited because, now he could – Dougie was – you look at that Stanley Cup team, how many MVPs we could have had. Al McGinnis won, but Mike Vernon, if he doesn't stop Schmiel and Tony Tanney in Vancouver in the front, if Joel Otto doesn't kick the overtime winner in Game 7 to beat Vancouver, that was 48 points less than us, we don't win the Cup. You look at, how Lanny came in and out. The leadership, everything. But you look at Al McGinnis, you look at Neuendijk, you look what Dougie did. Dougie Gilmore, he scored the big goals, was unbelievable against them in the Montreal series, as many people were. But we could have probably had 4 or 5 legitimate, Conn Smythe guys, right, on that team. So Dougie was looking to expand his role, not because he was a checker on our team, even though he got 80-something points. Yeah. He was our checker out of all the centermen. So that's what people don't understand. Our fourth line scored 32 goals or something like that. Okay, you know what I mean? That's a lot. Back then, Ricky, that was a career for some of these fourth liners.
Well, what that is success to win. If your fourth line can do that, and be good defensive players
and punch the shit out of a lot of people. So
yeah. Yeah.
So Dougie was, interested in doing more, Mike. You know what I mean? And that trade, wow, the rest is history, right? He came to Toronto, showed very well the half a year we were really hot that half a year. And then unfortunately for me, I came with a broken foot and I waited a week and my mom was hounding me like the Habs are coming into Maple Leaf Gardens and you got to play as a Hab. I want to see you play as a Leaf against the Habs. And I'm like, okay, I can freeze it. So I get Chris Broadhurst and those guys to freeze it up. And, oh, my God, have you ever had freezing in your feet? It's like they peel the skin back and pour boiling water between the meat and your skin. Oh, you can feel it moving through, burning. So I got them to do that so my foot would stay numb, and we built an apparatus to hopefully absorb some of the shock because I guess I wasn't smart enough still to get out of the way when I had a broken foot. So there was concern I might, forget. So we go out there, we're playing the Habs, and my mom's happy. So I'm happy because, if mom's happy, the greatest thing on earth I could eat shit and she'd say it was good for you, right? So at the end of the day, I get out there, we're killing a penalty. Stéphane Richer winds up. I go down, I block the shot. He breaks the 3 toes on my right foot. This is my left foot that's already broken. I got 3 toes that are broken. So my first 30 games in Montreal, I wore Hugo Boss $1,500 suits with Bauer flip-flops through the airport because I couldn't put shoes on. So I had to get my feet frozen for almost, 2 months to put them in the skates. So it's funny because my buddies, hey, shit, we thought you were a little faster. And I'm like, fuck you, right? I got 2 broken feet, right? So at the end of the day, the Leaf experience was awesome. But, as Hyman had said, and Ricky can attest to that, while you're a little farther away, Ricky, from being this around area where you grew up, people coming out of the woodworks, Mike. You know what I mean? Bugging me for tickets, bugging me for this, bugging me for that. And I love my family, but the pressure from my family to, this, that, and the other thing. So I've become a free agent, a Group 6. And that's after I signed that double eagle for Montreal or with Calgary. And they said Cliff was in China for some reason doing some stuff over there. He was gone a month, and Billy wanted to negotiate. And Ricky Curran, Billy Waters had stepped down as an agent and become the assistant GM in Toronto. And Ricky Curran had taken over from Billy Waters when I left Eagleson. So we're negotiating. Billy only wants to give me a 3-year deal, only wants to pay me $300. They just signed Jamie McCallum for $4 something. I said, I know he's better than me, but he's not that much better than me. I've got 6 teams that are willing to give me 4-year deals at $450, $500 a year. Thought we were joking, and I said, I'd like to talk to Cliff. Well, Cliff was in China. I said, well, that's unfortunate because I'm going to sign with Philly. Unfortunately, back then, we didn't get to do the tours and we didn't do anything. First time I ever made that kind of money, I was making more money in my last couple of years than I did in my first 10, type of thing. So maybe I pulled the trigger a little quick on, the most cash. Didn't look at their organization. They did get Eric Lindos, but they were struggling, in a lot of areas. Wasn't a good fit. Bobby Clark came back, and we didn't see eye to eye because, again, I had blew my knee out for the 6th or 7th time. And then I blew my back out, broke my foot, and broke my wrist in 14 months. I was there. Wasn't very good. Yeah. In 14 months. Yeah. Yeah. So, I left Toronto, and then, because my mom understood, but at least I got to wear the jersey for her, and she's so proud of that. That and the Team Canada, the Stanley Cup's up there. I'm not sure if it's better with the Leafs or Team Canada that I played for, but she still was proud of those 3 things and, the experience. But hindsight, and not because they won, but to be honest with you, I was drinking a little bit too much and, wasn't enjoying. I was hurt a lot, so I was trying to make excuses on couldn't work out as much as I wanted, and I was depressed. So, those type of things. And, there's a lot of guys that ran through the same story. And mentally I was, I was getting tired after 11 years because, the last 4 or 5, I had missed half of the season because of injury and worked so hard for rehab and trying to get back. And it was just, I weakened physically and mentally. And that's, pretty much when I decided that was time to leave the game.
Well, you've been a fantastic guest today, by the way,
you.
Rick. And we're going on, but we're a little over, so we're gonna extend it here today, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay, sure. I thought you were gonna tell me I was talking too much, but
no, we love this stuff.
No.
Squid wants to ask a question, but I got a few. We got a few left we want to get to you. Squid,
okay,
you lead it off. I got a few for you to finish off with.
Okay.
Well, Rick, I want you to get into what you're doing now.
Okay.
I know you and I did a thing up north, which was I had a blast. I don't know. I thought it was fantastic.
It did. It went.
You're doing a lot with the indigenous people in the country. So I want you to kind of walk us through what you're doing and the guys you're doing it with and that sort of thing.
Sure, Ricky. So it's funny because everybody asks, "Are you indigenous?" And I'm not. I came up in, and we all have our stories about how we grew up and loving mother, didn't know my fathers, and I didn't lose it. So I have a story about taking the bus and, people helping with sticks and helping with everything. So a guy I got drafted in the same year to Montreal was John Chabot. Johnny played in the queue, very gifted, still smooth at 60 years old because he's the same age as me. So he was drafted he was the 40th pick. Montreal had 2 second rounders. They had Doug Wickenheiser in the first pick overall, and then 2 second rounders was myself first, and then Johnny Chabot. And then, so Johnny's indigenous. He's Ojibwe, I believe, from out of the Ottawa area. And Johnny and I had kept in touch as he played. He finished up in Detroit, but played in Pittsburgh, went to Europe and played a ton of hockey. And so Johnny's been doing this program, First Assist, it's called. And he's been traveling to all these Northern Indigenous schools or communities all over Canada and in the States and done some stuff in Europe. And Johnny just talks to them about, opportunity. And I think he called me up and said, Nat, we'd love you to come. He knows I love kids and, good with people. And I can pretty much talk to anybody, no matter what, what your upbringing is or what your status is financially or whatever. So he wanted me to come. So, I was part of that team with Brian Trottier. As we know, Brian, most decorated indigenous hockey player in the world. You know what I mean? He's in 5 Hall of Fame, seven Stanley Cups. So that what kind of player, top 100 guy in the National Hockey League, deservedly so. Aaron Asham had just retired because we've been doing this now for about 12 years, right? 10, 12 years. So Aaron Asham, guys like Blair Atchman, Denny Lambert, the tough guy out of Ottawa. A few other guys that, that would rotate in and rotate out, but we're mostly the core, those guys right there with Johnny. So we've been traveling to communities, a lot of communities. Unfortunately, with COVID, we didn't do that. Ricky and I were fortunate enough to get to Cochrane in between the break before the last shutdown in April of before the summer. So we've been dealing with going into these communities in the Yukon. We're up in the Yukon quite a bit. We've been to every community there. We've been to 4 or 5 communities in Northwest Territories, Labrador, Newfoundland, Alberta. We haven't done much stuff in Vancouver, and we're hoping to expand into there. What we do is we go in and try to, if the biggest issue is we wanted to give equipment and certain supplies to kids, but unfortunately getting stuff into these communities that are, taking bush planes, right? We're taking, they call them Cessna caravans, which are 9-seaters, technically 11 with the pilot and the co-pilot, but I was the co-pilot a lot, Mike. You know what I mean? Because I sat up there and I'm like, if you're going down up here, do you want to live or do you, or just get it over with because you ain't going anywhere if you live. So we've traveled to we've traveled to where the ice road to Delaney, Northwest Territories, the ice road trucker come, that's where they filmed that. Like, as I said, so we've been to Nain, Labrador, we've been to Fogo Island, we've been everywhere. So we go into these communities, certainly with, speaking with the elders, because, these communities are very big on elders and respecting that, which is, you should be no matter what. I don't care where you come from or what language you speak or what ethnicity you are. So we go to the schools and we do an assembly, and we talk to the kids about, because one of the biggest issues is preteen suicide. Like, how can, before you're 12 years, 13 years old, how can you think your life is over or you don't have an opportunity? But if you've seen some of these communities, and I'm not trying to blanket anything, some of these communities are very engaged educationally, athletically with their kids, and you see the prosper there, you see the growth, you see the enthusiasm in the community. And there's other communities that aren't so much that way, and you can see that as well, and you can feel it. You know what I mean? There's a heaviness to that. So with this program that we did, we go into the schools, talk to the kids, we put clinics on. Just, it's a confidence thing. Have fun. Believe it's okay to dream. Can you believe that kids are afraid to dream? And that's like, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that we have children, and certainly in Canada, because I've seen some communities, you can't believe that we're in Canada. You know what I mean? No running water. I met a girl, 36 years old. I was there the first time she drank water out of a tap. 36 years old, first time to drink water out of a tap. That is, I can't comprehend this shit, right? And we've had government after government after government. I'm not trying to berate that, but that haven't been able to fix this problem, and I don't see why. But anyway, so we're trying to get these kids to dream. And now I do a program, and Ricky's been a part of this. This is separate with Cisco Canada, Cisco Systems Canada. So we do a program called Connected North. It's Tech for Good is the hockey tournament. But Connected North is a group that, Taking It Global is the charity that runs Connected North. And what this does is put broadband and Wi-Fi in northern indigenous communities. So now they can communicate with the world. That's the biggest issue. When we go to these places that are tucked right by BC and Alaska, there's not much to go from, and they still have to leave to go to high school, because they don't have enough, teenagers to go to high school. So, there's that threat still in that community after, the school system problems. So we go into these communities with these programs, and now it opens up. I want to do a podcast. How do I do a podcast? I want to be a DJ. I want to be a doctor. I want to be EMS. I want to be an actor. I want to be a theater actor. So we could take these kids, or not me, but once we have the programs in there, that they can take these kids and expand to. There was a Canadian that, and I forget his name, I apologize. He's running one of the biggest opera houses and theaters in London, England, and he's a Canadian. So they did a FaceTime with him, with grade 11s, and they asked him questions. How did you get in? He says, well, I started with school plays, and I went to this, I went to that, and then I found I loved the theater more than I loved the movie stuff. So, and then he explained how he got to where he is today. So we want them to understand, and he was a gentleman that didn't come from a great background. He had some indigenous in him. And we want to show these kids, you can always come home, but let's come home better. So we can leave to go to school, get educated, or work to get a degree, or to be a hockey player or a baseball player, lacrosse, whatever that is. But you can come back to your community, because a lot of these kids are afraid to leave because of the unknown and the racism that's out there. So they don't leave for whatever reason. But now we're seeing more and more self-government, which is doing great things. Educated people doing these, like actually indigenous people that are running their own programs, rather than the white guy telling them, listen, this is going to be good for you. Oh, sorry, didn't work out again this time. It's only the 9 millionth time in 100 and something years, right? So we're seeing that kind of government, and we're also seeing we're opening up the dreams again. And that's the whole point about it, because it's a shame and a crime if you've got a 10-year-old that doesn't want to dream because they don't believe they can make it come true.
What did you get out of it, Squid?
Well, I mean, I remember going up to
Cochrane.
Where did we go play?
Cochrane.
The alumni game.
Oh, and we go to
Moose Factory.
Moose Factory,
Moose
or
Factory.
Moose Factory, but the island.
Moose. So I remember being there. I don't know how many years ago it was. It was for some kind of a thing where they had booths in the gym, and it was universities and businesses that would come in and give the kids an opportunity to go around and get pamphlets and so on and see what's available to them. Because, but at least back then anyway, this was quite a while ago when I was there, and it was kind of a situation where they like you said, Rick, they didn't want to say anything because the elders didn't want them leaving, because they didn't want their community to, kind of disappear. And if all of a sudden all the teenagers finish high school and then they're gone, well, then there's no one left there. So that was what they were kind of dealing with at that time. And I found it quite interesting, and I loved when I had a chance to speak to the kids and in the gym there and everything. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I think, we've got to understand it's, and again, I'm not trying to explain anything, because we're seeing more and more of what the atrocities that have happened over, 200 years or more, right? Mm-hmm. Colonialism. But at the end of the day, we're talking about the kids, okay? All that other stuff is hugely important and very sickening in many ways, but about the kids, and how do you get kids to realize it's not against anything to dream, and it's not anything to, but you also gotta pull yourself away from certain environments, right? In regards to who you hang out with. And that's what we try to talk to. If you want to be successful, find somebody else that wants to be successful, right? You know what I mean? Or wants to be a good hockey player, a baseball player, stick to work and work together, find a teammate, you know what I mean? And that's what we're trying to teach them. You've got teammates out there. Let's try to use them. You've got some wise people here, and certainly with, preteens, let's try to eliminate suicide from 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kids that believe this is the only out. And we're trying to say there's lots of ways to go out, get out, but there's also ways to come back and help your community so other people don't struggle like you have mentally and physically.
Well, I think you're seeing guys like Reggie Leach give more back to the community.
Well, Reggie's part of that. Jamie Leach, Jamie's part of that team as well. I shouldn't forget Reggie, because, Order of Canada, and he's a great man, bud. He's a great man, and I've seen what he does and how respected he is. But the thing about that culture is what I really like is that they really respect their elders. They do. There's some Unfortunately, there's kids that don't, but we have that all through walks of life. But they put their elders at the top and make sure when we're having community feasts, they get fed first. Do you understand what I mean by that? Because I'm not sure society as a whole understands what that means anymore. You know what I mean?
What goes on every day of the week in everyday life now, in the communities and the inner city stuff going on, and the crime and just no regard for human life or respect.
Or respect is the biggest thing. Like, you know what I mean? It was all Ricky. We grew up, respect your elders. I mean, and you know, when we try to, like, you know what I mean? I try to, I still do to this day. And when I'm around older hockey players that I grew up watching and everything, I find, and they know me and we're friends, it's still hard for me to not say, Mister, you know what I mean? It's hard for me. Yeah. But, you know, at the end of the day, you do your best, and we're trying to do better. And Johnny Shabbat's done a great job. Jamie Leach does shoot to score, which they run hockey programs, him and Reggie, and they've done a great job in their communities and beyond, and they continue to do that. And I'm just honored that, and I say this, I'm the token white guy there. You know what I mean? And what I mean is I'm the defenseman, because they are all goal scorers apparently, and they never come back into their own end. So they need someone like me to go through it.
Well, that's why you drag Squid
exactly
along.
what I'm talking about.
That's why you drag Squid along.
That's right.
Well, guys, you know, we've had a great show here. But got a couple. We just want to end off on a couple of positive. That's great work you're doing. Keep doing it. I mean, it will be recognized. Anything we can.
Anybody needs a public speaker, MC, or a jokester. Ricky knows I'm pretty good at that too.
We can see that, and we're going to hear that. Our audience is going to hear that this week. So, just on speaking of jokesters, that's a good segue into where I want to go next. Now, some of the funnier guys you played with, I wanted to cut right to the chase. Now, one of the guys who is a Hall of Fame prankster, is a guy by the name of Doug Gilmore here with for a number of years.
Little shit. I call him a little shit. Can I say that on Leaf Nation?
Sure can.
I say that? I won't get a hit list or, you know, letters of good execution come in my house or what?
Well, I've told this story a couple of times on that, is that when we've had him on our show, he was on a Zoom call, or actually StreamYard as we're using. I still checked my shoes before I left the house. And, okay, that's how notorious this guy is.
Listen, he's been in $2,000 suits, crawling under tables, right? Under tables in, like, I wouldn't say that, and I'm not saying the places were dirty or anything. And we're not talking like a hotel. We're talking a restaurant, a jam restaurant, and we're sitting there as a team. And he's got his Hugo Boss suit on. Can I tell one story about Dougie?
We want you to tell some stories.
So we're in Calgary. No, where were we? We're the Leafs or Calgary. Anyways, this is where the memory goes too many headshots. We're either Calgary or Toronto. So we're in Chicago. And usually Dougie's at the rink way before everybody else, right? And he's gone. Like Guy Lafleur used to amaze me. Guy Lafleur would be there all day. And then by the time I got off the ice from the game, saying, you know, high-fiving guys, and if I was playing, he'd be in the shower ready, almost walking out the door before I touched my skate to get it on. But he'd be there 5 hours before the game. So Dougie loved to get there early to drink his 9 million coffees and do whatever Dougie Gilmore did. So, you know, one time he's there and he's waiting, and, you know, so no surprise that he's early. But at the end of the game, usually I'm getting therapy and all this. I'm like, I get undressed quick, but I seem to be the last guy out of the room for whatever reason. I don't, too much talking. So anyways, I'm sitting there getting iced down and everything like that. And Dougie's waiting around. I'm thinking, you little sucker, what's going on with you? Why aren't you gone? Why are you gone? I thought maybe he was going to screw up with some guy's equipment or something, right? Because we were hanging that night. And then he says, okay, I'll tell you. So the night before, he put a suit out because, you know, we learned how to travel, right? The one suit, 3 shirts, 3 ties, 3 pair of underwear, 3 pair of socks. You're good to go. No, I'll carry on. Don't have to check a bag, right? You can get out of there quick. So all of a sudden, he put his bag out on the door, and they would grab it at night and be back at 6 in the morning, right? You had to have it out at 10 by 10 or 11 or whatever. And so instead of dry cleaning on the, you know, you have to fill up the sheet and put it on there, he put wash. So they washed the suit and dried it. So I swear to God, his arm, how do I get so you guys can see? His arm was like, you know, up to here. His pant legs, they look like those shorts or pants, you know, the ones just below the knee. What do they call those? Like capris. The girls call them capris.
Capris.
So he puts on his suit because he can't go buy another one, right? Because we didn't have a pregame skate and all that kind of stuff. So he's stuck with this suit because he didn't take it out of the wrapper until it was time to go to the rink, right? So he's at the rink and he's doing this, and he shows me his suit. I almost pissed myself. It looked like it belonged to a 6-year-old Dougie Gilmore. Now it's 26 or 30 or whatever we were at the time. But I laughed and laughed at him, and I bring that up too because he used to bug me about a few things when I talk about the suit. Like Pee Wee Herman suit, that's what it was.
Did he ever get you with a prank, or you too?
Oh no, because he knows I'd hit him, right? Because a little shit, you know what I mean. But he, what he used to do, and I don't know, we would be out having dinner, having a few pops the night before, maybe not feeling 100% in the next morning. And Dougie had this thing he'd do with his elbows, right? Made him look like he was going 900 miles an hour and his feet weren't even friggin' moving, right? So, and I'm a big Clydesdale, okay? So I'm thumping it through. And then when I'm not feeling as good, for whatever reason, I thump a little harder. So I, flog him through quicksand. I look like I'm going through quicksand. And he looks like he's a figure skater, but going nowhere. Right, so he'd shoot pucks in my feet all the time too. When he knew I wasn't feeling so good, I had the flu. I think, Ricky, I had the flu. But at the end of the day, he'd shoot pucks in my feet all the time. I'd be around the coach, and he'd say, "Nat wants to talk to you, coach." And he'd bring the coach over, and of course, the coach wants to get right in your face, and you don't smell like. That's when I learned about garlic. Eat half a clove of garlic, and the coach will never come and talk to you. Okay, but if you smell like booze, he's going to be right in your face, right? So that's what Doug used to do to me. And then I'd be saying, "Nat, you got to stay out and sweat that off." And Dougie, good practice. You can go off, and you'd be smirking a little thing, and I'd be like, "You little prick." So he'd be going, but he wouldn't. He knew, don't fool with the clothes, bud. You know what I mean? If you fool with my clothes, I will. I don't care if you're Dougie Gilmore. I'll kill you. So he was pretty good. But we go back a long way. Dougie and I, spent a lot of time together. His firstborn, Madison, grew up with my two kids, and they're at that age. And, his young boys, I got to know, and his young daughter, Victoria. I mean, he's been a lifelong friend, and he's got to remind me, as Doug does, as Cliff does. Cliff had to remind me, I traded for you twice. And I'm like, oh, shit, you did. Eh? There goes another Minnesota story right there. So,
well, I was going to say, like, Gilmore, he has no empathy for anybody in anybody's game. And he told Squid and I's story that I think he was with Lanny McDonald, or maybe it might have been Noondyke, but one of the guys, they were at a neighbor's place for New Year's celebrating or something, and they're in outdoor and they had a fire going and all this. So he taps whoever it was, McDonald, on his shoulder and says, "Come with me for a minute." And they go inside the guy's house, and everybody else is in the backyard. So he goes inside and they go into the pantry, and he starts pulling all the cans out of the guy's pantry, all the canned goods.
Yeah.
Then he tore all the labels off all the cans and put them all back.
Oh, he's such a little shit. That's why I call him little shit, bud. Because that's what I said. No, isn't Dougie great? Oh, I love Dougie. I said he's a little shit.
Like, who thinks that?
But I love him. And we've been friends forever. But he, do that, and then he'd sort of hide, right? You know what I mean? Cause shit, and then everybody, couldn't have been Dougie. Look, he's like an angel. Like, he's an angel. It must have been Nat. Nat must have did it, right? No.
You know what the hilarious thing is, Rick, is that he's like that still today.
Oh, 100%. From day one, I met him. I'll see him next week.
Oh, I mean, the alumni games, he's going around cutting laces, and
you can't get under the table as quick anymore because I've seen that little pouch, so he's got to watch it, right? And he says he's wearing him and his satchel, his man purse, I call it. He calls it a satchel. But listen, as much as he joked, he worked, and he enjoyed the game. He enjoyed the atmosphere, and you don't last as long as he did and be that successful if you don't love the game. And part of that is having fun in the dressing room. Ricky could attest to, because when you're winning, it's great, but when you're losing, you still have to have some fun, because if you don't, then it becomes – you get into situations where it gets away from you, right? Individually and as a team. So the lighter you can make it, but still with the work ethic, I think Dougie was really good at that. I make fun of, you know, how we used to skate and practice with all the upper body movement and lower body movement. But when it was time to play, as we all know, you know what I mean, he came to play, and I'll tell you that. And I would fight. He knew he could go through any door, bud, because I'd be right there with him.
Well, Rick, we can't thank you enough for joining us.
My pleasure.
Fantastic stories.
Thank you.
Could go on for another hour with you. We got so much to do, but we do have a time constraint.
We have to go to the washroom. I know Ricky does. I probably.
We're at that age, as you know.
Hey,
well, I appreciate you guys having me on, eh? I appreciate you having me on, and we'll talk, Ricky. It was good to see you the other day, bud. We'll talk soon, eh?
Yeah,
Mike, it's a pleasure. We've never really talked much, but it's a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, great. Same to you, Nat. Thanks so much.
Take care, guys.
Today. Okay, thanks, Nat.
Thanks, Nat.